Hello, everyone. Welcome. Thank you for joining us on this lovely evening on Thursday. I'm glad that you're here and ready to learn some social media marketing. So we will go ahead and dive right into it. I hope everybody's doing great today. I'm really excited to be talking about some social media stuff with you. Before we get things rocking and rolling, I just wanted to let you all know who I am and I am here. My name is Justine Sanborn, and I am one of the instructors at Noble Desktop. And I'm super pumped to bring to you some really cool information about social media marketing today on one of the glorious platforms, YouTube. And we're doing it live here, so we're going to go ahead and just take a look at what we got going on here. Okay, our main focus today is going to be how to make engaging and lasting impact on social media. So if y'all can do me a favor and type in the chat just to make sure that everything's going fantastic, that would be greatly appreciated. I'd love to hear your feedback as we're going through everything, and so I can take questions on the fly if you have anything, but we're going to mostly stick to what is on this seminar. All right. Again, the main focus is creating engaging and lasting impact on the social media platforms of your choice, right? And we're going to go ahead and get started with one of my single most favorite humans, and a quote from them. The single greatest gift you could ever give the world is to be exactly who you are. And that is from Jenna Marbles, who is a YouTube content creator on this platform here. A really wonderful, lovely human being who has been a part of the YouTube landscape for over a decade now. They've taken a little bit of a time off, but it's a really important thing to consider, especially in this environment of the social media. We tend to kind of think about things in a bit more of, especially when it comes to business, we really think, oh, we got to sell something, but really it's about being yourself and authentically yourself as much as possible. And I think this quote like really holds truth to this. So hi from Atlanta, hi from New York. Wonderful. Awesome. I'm glad to see everybody in the chat. Good to see everybody. All right. Moving on forward here. Here is a wonderful example of being an authentic self. This is actually Apple's Shot on an iPhone campaign, which is arguably one of the most impressive parts of the campaign. The way that Apple harnessed user-generated content on Instagram is absolutely incredible. What user-generated content is, or UGC, if you will, is content that is created and published by unpaid contributors. So that's their actual audience, right? And these contributors are usually and almost always customers, sometimes followers, or even fans who promote the brand with their original content, such as images, videos, blogs, whatever. You see it all the time, actually, and it's pretty awesome to see it, somebody like Apple using this user-generated content so well. Brands can reach out to gain permission, and this is usually what happens, is that brands will reach out to these individuals so that they have permission to use this content. Apple created the hashtag, actually, which, as I mentioned earlier, is shot on an iPhone. So it's hashtag shot on iPhone to promote the social media campaign on Instagram. And it was a really incredible use of showcasing this connection between the consumer as well as the brand. So I think a lot of people kind of go into the social media environment thinking, oh man, it's just me against the world here. And it's really not. It's all about building a community. It's all about coming and banding in together and doing the best that we can for each other, really. And that's what makes it really special. Whoops. So continuing on here. Oh, we had links. That's why. Determine the right social media platform is, well, excuse me, 4 fundamental goals of social media is what we're going to dive into next. Determine the right social media platform for your goals. Number 2, develop a successful social media strategy. Number 3, create content that increases engagement and drives sales. And number 4, from those 3, You can gain a following and expand your reach. Okay, so those are the 4 fundamental goals that most folks are going to have going into that social media landscape. And those are things that you really want to think about as you're starting this journey. Okay, we're going to dive deeper into each of these 4 aspects so we can get a better understanding of what I mean when I'm talking about determining the right social media platform or developing a strategy. What are these strategies that I'm talking about? Increasing the engagement. How are we doing that? I showed you a great example of Apple engaging with their consumers with the shot on the iPhone, but there's a lot more to it than just that. All right. So continuing on, we're going to just talk about this social media landscape. There's so much to it. There's so many bits and pieces, and there's so many options that you can take. So choosing the one that you want to use for your company can be a really hard decision. And it honestly comes down to these 3 main things, okay? When you're trying to choose that social media platform that's going to work best for you, number 1 is that you're going to really want to think about showcasing your strengths, okay? What are your strengths? Okay, are they strengths in talking? Are they strengths in writing? Are you great at shooting video? Are you great at taking pictures? What is your jam? What are you really good at? Are you good at sharing information with others? Are you good at giving advice? These are things that can impact how and where you choose to showcase these. So there's different platforms for everything. Okay. There is, again, if you're really good at photography, of course, that go-to is going to be Instagram. If you're really good at conversing or just frankly really good at with your words, then maybe Twitter is the route that you want to take. Maybe there is a specific connection that the program has with other things. Those things can all play a role. Actually, that leads to the other 2 pieces, right? So you got your showcase your strength. We're going to dive into number 2, reach your target audience. Where is your target audience? Who is your target audience? What even is a target audience? Okay. We're going to dive deeper into target audiences later into this presentation, but to summarize shortly for right now, it is a group of people that are a specific type of person. They go about their day to day in a specific way. Maybe they're in a specific location, or sometimes they're a specific age range. Maybe they have a specific hobby that they're into. Those are types of things that can really dive into that target audience for you. And that's really important to figure out and determine so that you are able to reach your target audience. How are they in taking in the social media environment? Are they primarily on TikTok? Are they primarily on Facebook? What is the social media platform that they prefer to use? And what part of that social media platform do they tend to use as well? Right? A lot of questions, a lot of research, okay? And number 3, one of the important things, although personally mixed feels about it, is cross-posting to other platforms. I personally love cross-platform posting. However, there are certain platforms that, even though they promote cross-platform promotion, they want you to start the post on that platform and then share it elsewhere. Whereas some are like, yeah, it's fine that you created it wherever. You can post it here and that's totally okay. A really good example of that actually is Instagram and TikTok. All right. So TikTok, for example, is not a big fan of you creating content outside of the application. They really want you to take advantage of the features of TikTok, record the video directly with TikTok, and then you can share it cross platforms to other places like Facebook or Instagram, right? Speaking of, then you have Instagram, and Instagram is, they have their reels, and with reels, it is a bit, and I don't mean this in a negative way at all, but it is a bit of recycled content that you're seeing first on TikTok and then recycled over to Instagram. And it seems to have the same impact. or rather a similar impact as it did on TikTok. So you're seeing that. And again, taking that content that was originally posted on TikTok, putting it on Instagram, not a big deal. But vice versa, if you had it from Instagram first, then put it on TikTok, it tends to not work as well. Okay, so those are some things to think about, is how are you going to be working through these platforms if you choose to use multiple? How is that going to work? Okay, those are one of the big sort of decision factors that you're going to have to think about as you're going through this. Okay, so we'll continue right on here. Let's talk about showcasing those strengths, shall we? All right. Basically list out a bunch of questions. Okay. Speaking of these questions, and if you're panicking right now that I'm zooming through all of these slides and you're like, shoot, I need to take notes and I am not taking notes fast enough, you will see in the chat that there is actually a link to this presentation. So you can go directly to the presentation to see the actual slides, and there are some links again on the actual slide with the shot on the iPhone. It links to Apple's Instagram, so you can check that out, among many other things. So it's definitely worth your time taking a look at. Okay. One of the things that you'll definitely want to look at is this particular slide, which is showcasing your strengths, because these are a series of questions that honestly you're going to want to ask yourself, or ask yourself about the business that you are choosing to either create or promote in the social media landscape. Okay. So the first question is, what do I do best? Okay. What are the things that you do best, or what is the thing that your company does best? Okay. Number 2, what unique knowledge, talent, or resources do I have? Okay. So again, that could be for you as an individual. It could be for you as a company. It could be you showcasing a company, all of those fun things there. Okay. What advantages do I have? It's pretty straightforward. Okay. What advantages do I have? Those advantages could be a variety of things, but honestly, a lot of times they tend to connect a lot to the knowledge, talent, or frankly, resources that you already have harnessed. So those two things definitely go hand in hand. What do other people say I do well? Okay. In the chat, honestly, when's the last time you asked someone that question? Have you ever asked someone, hey, just wondering, out of curiosity, what do you think I do well? Right? What do you think I do well? The link should be at the top of the chat, by the way, Andrea. Okay. In the info. So that is it's kind of a crazy question, and a lot of times you're going to get the answers that you're frankly not going to be expecting. And it's kind of an exciting experience if you haven't done it for the first time. So it's definitely something just to try out, even on a personal basis, just to see, what people think about you. It's a very interesting perspective, and one we often, don't talk about. Next on the list is, what resources do I have available? Okay. Where are those resources coming from? What do they look like? Are they connections? Are they mentors? Are they people? Are they businesses? How can that impact how you're showcasing your strengths? Okay. And lastly, what is my greatest achievement? You could put S at the end of achievement, so it's achievements. It could be any type of achievement that you're looking at, and what is it that you really want to showcase of that achievement? You definitely will want to show that off at a point in time. Okay, so something to think about there. All right. So moving on next, we have reach your target audience. Okay. Here's a big number one again, as we saw in the first thing. We really want to use existing data to develop a target audience. Okay. So again, thinking about who these people are and where they're coming from and all that fun stuff. Okay. So who are they? What do they do? Where are they from? How old are they? All this fun stuff. And you can find these things online really well. I honestly, a really great place to look at is your friend group that you have already or your business group that you have already. Okay. That could potentially be a part of your target audience. Okay. And just researching what that is for you. A lot of research is going to help you in achieving that. Okay. I did see your comment there, Angia. I will get it sorted as soon as I possibly can. Okay. The next thing, and I love this. I love these two bits. It's actually a really fun thing to experience, and that's social listening. Okay. Social listening. What are they talking about? A really good example of this is honestly Facebook groups. Facebook groups is a really great way to quickly search who's talking about what and what they're talking about. Okay. Frankly, because there's you could just simply search on Facebook and there's likely going to be a group about it. Okay. So maybe your business is a candy shop and you just go onto Facebook and maybe you search group that likes candy, right? It's probably there. And you can see what they're talking about and what they're interested in. Okay. Next, after social listening, you can research the competition. Okay. Research a competition. And that is a really important thing to consider. Lastly, what kind of content does your audience want? What are they looking for? Okay. Are they asking questions? Are they trying to be involved? Right. What are types of ways that you can help them? Okay. These are things that you really want to consider while you're doing this. Okay. Moving on. Cross-posting. Okay. So next thing is cross-posting. Does your preferred platform support cross-posting? What other platforms are important to your audience? And is it the same format for all platforms chosen? Oof, that last question is really, really, really important, by the way. But the other two are equally as important. Does your preferred platform support cross-posting? As I talked about earlier with the difference between Instagram and TikTok, sometimes that support isn't as strong as you'd want it to be. So you have to use that in terms of making the right decision on where maybe you're posting first or how you're posting your stuff ultimately. Okay. What other platforms are important to your audience? Again, that's similar to what we were talking about earlier. So where are they talking? What are they talking about? Where are they going to see your content? Okay. Super important to understand that. And is the same format, or is it the same format for all platforms? And long story short is no. Very rarely no. There are some general consistencies. Okay. But when it comes to posting content successfully, there's a lot more inconsistencies, frankly, than there are consistencies. For example, again, circling over to video content specifically, we have YouTube here that's formatted in a way that's 1920 by 1080. That means it's 1920 pixels and 1080 height. Okay, so 1920 pixels with 1080 height. Okay, versus TikTok, which is completely the opposite. It has the width of 1080 and the height of 1920. Now, that measurement is similar to what you're going to see on your stories in both Facebook and Instagram. So that will share well. But if you created content in YouTube and you want to share it to TikTok, that's going to be a bit more trying, right? Same thing with visual content, such as things on Instagram and Facebook. There are different sizes on both that can work, but there's some that are preferred. On Instagram, what I tend to see that seems to be more successful is their portrait option Their portrait option is going to be a width, again, of 1080 and a height of 1350. So it's a little taller than their squares, but it's not a full portrait, which is also a thing to consider when you're shooting your imagery, okay? Squares, of course, work really well with Instagram. 1080 by 1080 works really well with Facebook, and honestly a lot of other platforms too. So sometimes choosing the square just to simply cross post onto other things can be advantageous. It just depends on what you're doing, okay? So NHL is a really great example of understanding their target audience and posting to where they tend to be prevalent the most. So NHL has a lot of different platforms. A lot of different accounts on different platforms. One of their main ones, I would say, is their Instagram account. And if you go to their Instagram account, you'll see that there's a strong consistency of content that is relating directly to their target market and is really humanistic, right? Going back to that quote from Jenna Marbles, just being authentically you, right? And you're seeing that consistently with the content that they're posting on their Instagram, especially. Okay. We have another quote here. Wisdom is knowing the right path to take. Integrity is taking it. Okay. That has a lot to do with what we're dealing with when we're going into understanding where and how people see you on social media. Okay. And understanding, okay, this is probably going to be the best way to talk about this, or showcasing something that's really important to you, right? And just being, again, honest and genuine with that entire process, okay? The big thing with this quote is just really understanding that ultimately when I talk about being genuine, when I talk about being your true self, I'm really not talking about being like, hey, here's this thing that I have and it's for sale for $29.99. Buy it now. Because that's not authentic. It's not being your true self. There's really not the best choice. And perhaps in relation to this quote, not the right path to take. Okay? Or you just don't know what to say and you say it all wrong. Okay? Here's an example of that. Oh, Chase, you did not do good on this one. All right? So hashtags is a really great way to showcase your information to a larger audience, and especially on Twitter, where it was essentially founded. Chase was trying to take advantage of the concept of Monday motivation. Monday motivation's purpose is to get people pumped to try to be their best selves. Like, even if life's got you in the dumps, you didn't have the greatest week last week. Maybe you didn't have the greatest week before. And, you just got to get yourself lifted up. So you got some Motivation Monday, right? Then Chase came in and said this. Why is my bank balance, or my balance so low? Bank account. Make coffee at home. Bank account. Eat the food that's already in the fridge. Bank account. You don't need a cab. It's only 3 blocks. I guess we'll never know. Bank account. Seriously? Going back really quick to this quote. Wisdom is knowing the right path to take. Integrity is taking it. I don't know about you, but I'm really not seeing the integrity of humanizing the bank account into being not a good friend, honestly. Okay? That bank account human that they created on this Twitter post, probably not somebody that you want to be friends with. That's really harsh and not very nice. Okay? Which leads to a loss of integrity. So then you have their attempt to come back or slash apology here. So Chase posts, our hashtag Monday motivation is to get better at Monday motivation. Rolls eyes giant. Tweets. Thanks for the feedback, Twitter world. Okay. It shouldn't take the feedback of the community online to understand when something is thoughtful versus when something is unthoughtful. Okay. One of the better ways to think about that is actually visualizing these companies as a friend. Okay. So if it is your business, think about, okay, if your business was a friend, what kind of friend would they be? You know, of course, you want your friend to be loyal and you want your friend to be trustworthy. So those are two extremely important things. Okay. And the big reason why Chase was not successful in that post, because frankly, it was an awful post, but the big reason is because they made that friend untrustworthy and not a good friend, just not a friend that you'd be interested in. They broke that trust. They broke that loyalty because it's just not a kind thing to say. So also thinking about kindness as well. Okay. So really thinking about that. All right. As you're creating these posts. We're going to move on from that. And I see your question, Andrea. I will be answering questions here in a little bit. It might relate to something that I have in a slide later too. So it's definitely a really great question and I'm happy to help, but give me a hot second and I'll get back to it. Okay. Now we're going to dive into some other really important things that honestly relates a lot to what I was talking about with having your company or having your persona or whatever you're trying to do with social media being that friend and who they are as that friend. Okay. And that's developing a strategy. The first thing about developing a successful strategy is determining your brand's voice. Who is your brand? Right? What kind of friend are they? Okay. What kind of style are they? Are they really cool? Are they really chill? Are they bubbly? Are they quiet? These are things about a brand that you want to think about. What is that voice? Are they funny? Are they the jokester? These are things that you want to consider. Okay. Determine your brand's mission. Okay. Why are you here? Why are you posting on social media? What are you doing with it? Why? Okay. So determine your brand's mission. Long story short, why? Why? Okay. And lastly, research trends and brand analytics. Please research, research, research. When you're done researching, research more. Ultimately, okay? The more you research, the more information you have, and the more you can understand ultimately where people are potentially coming from. Okay? So we're going to dive deeper into these 3 bullet points. Okay? Determining a brand's voice. Okay? This can be done, or this is a really great way to just kind of start to brainstorm these ideas and get a start on thinking about what that brand voice is. And as you go on, you can continue to develop it stronger and stronger. Okay. So what are 3 words that represents your brand? What are the do's and don'ts of those words? And how can you apply those words on social media? Okay. So what are 3 words that represent your brand? Really similar to, when we do those like icebreaker conversations and a person is like, okay, describe yourself in 3 words. It's literally what you want to do with your brand, right? So if I'm describing myself as bubbly, I guess outgoing is the same thing, but loud. These are 3 things that I use to represent myself. But that's type of thing that you'd want to do with a brand. So you would look at a brand or your brand or your company's brand and be like, okay, what are the 3 words that would describe that? Okay, who are they? What are they? What are the do's and don'ts of those words? Okay, what are the do's and don'ts? So if you're bubbly, you probably don't want to be mean. or negative, right? So that would be a don't. A do would be being happy if you were bubbly, right? And do positive things. Okay, those would be do's. And quite literally, you can make a table of these things to get a gist of what they mean to you and your brand. Okay. How can you apply those words in social media? Okay. So those words are a representation of the voice, of the personality of your brand. Okay. And with that, you can take that as a stepping stone to what type of information that you're sharing and how you're sharing that information. Okay. Are you going about it in a bubbly way? Okay. Or is that not a bubbly enough post? For example, if again, one of those three words was bubbly. Okay. You could always ask yourself those questions and circle back to those three words to make sure, or rather ensure, that your posts on social media have integrity based on your brand's voice. Okay. And as long as you're doing that consistently, the likelihood of that thing that you saw happen with Chase, it's a lot less likely. Can it still happen? Listen, we're all human beings. Honestly, it was a really, really bad mistake that they made. It's just really inconsiderate, but it can happen. Okay. And another part of integrity is ultimately how you deal with those instances as they come as well. Okay. So some food for thought there. Excuse me. Brand's mission. Okay. There's a lot of what's here, but I also mentioned whys. Okay. You can basically add all of those question mark words to this. Okay. Who, what, where, when, why. Okay. They can all be used here, but here's some three main things. Okay. What are your competitors' missions? What are your short-term goals? And what are your long-term goals? Okay. When I talk about these goals specifically for a brand, I'm talking about what your goals as a brand are, not necessarily what your goals for social media is. That will come later. Okay. Why does your brand exist is another one that can be added in there that's not listed on this list, but it's a really important one. So I would definitely make notes, make note of that one. Again, that's why does your brand exist? Okay. Why does your brand exist? And that brand could be you, but whatever. So looking at competitor admissions give you a really strong understanding of ultimately where you're coming from, which is why it could be one of the questions. Again, short-term and long-term goals ideally should match up. So the long-term goal of the company should be still on par to what that short-term goal is. Okay. If they're not on par anymore, that can be problematic. Okay. And that's something that you'd want to assess too. Like, oh, that might be a missing piece that we really want to think about. You want to pull those two together so that way they're a little bit more connected. Okay. So again, that's your brand's mission. Research trends and analytics. Okay. What is trending? What is trending? What is trending is ultimately the long story short here with all this. Okay. What's trending on your chosen platform? What's trending in your industry? What keywords is your target audience searching for? And what content is your target audience engaging with? Okay. So there's a lot of stuff going on here, but trends. Okay. And this is actually circling back. Andrea had a question about hashtags. So Andrea mentioned in the chat, can you explain the best way to use hashtags versus at something and what the difference is? Would really appreciate it. So something somewhat related to hashtags is a really great way to ultimately categorize your information. Okay. And especially in places like TikTok, especially like places like Instagram and Twitter, that is really, really important that you're putting your content in the right category. As long as you're putting your content in the right category, then your target audience is also likely to be able to see it. Note that I say likely. Okay. But with that being said, another amazing thing about hashtags is that they're really an, an essential tool of researching trends. And that basically follows suit for all platforms. Honestly, not Facebook so much. YouTube, not so much either. It's more of like a keywords thing or what's trending on Google. But in terms of your other main platforms that you would see, so you have your TikTok, your Instagram, and your Twitter, researching those hashtags will allow you to see what is trending. Okay. So a great way to start is finding a hashtag that you're interested in. Okay. So outside of teaching, I really like to roller skate. So a hashtag that I would look up is hashtag roller skating. And so I want to go to that hashtag and see how many posts are there, maybe how many posts have been there recently, and what other hashtags are relating to that specific hashtag. Okay. So you can just kind of deep dive from one thing and go into it. Okay. Another thing that's really helpful is platforms like TikTok, especially, show recent trending hashtags so that you can see what the recent trending hashtags are very easily. Whereas in some of your other platforms, such as Instagram, it's a little harder to see what hashtag is exactly trending on Instagram at the time. Still doable through the Explore page, among other things, but it's a little less clear as it is, again, on TikTok. Okay. So there's, long story short, one of the easiest ways to research what's trending is going to be through hashtags. Okay. Because it's ultimately a category of content. Okay. The ads we'll talk about maybe a little bit, but that's ultimately a completely separate thing from your hashtags, just to let you know. All right. Moving back into what we're looking at, what trends are in your industry. Okay. So again, I mentioned roller skating before, so I guess that would be my industry, right? So what type of trends would be in that, and then looking at the relating hashtags. So you could do that for cars, you could do that for clothing, etc. Okay. And find those specific hashtags that are working really well with your industry. Okay. Same deal with keywords. Okay. What keywords specifically is your audience searching for? This is extremely helpful for YouTube. Okay. So you can go to Google and see what these keywords are that they're searching for, see how many people have searched for it, and look at the content that's available for that as well. That's a really great place to figure out where maybe there's like a missing hole that you can dive into. Okay. Because there is so much content out there on the internet. It's kind of hard sometimes to like find where you belong. And there is instances, plenty of instances, where there are holes in information, or where you have an audience looking for information that's currently it's probably available, but just not a lot of it. Okay. And that's a really great opportunity for you to dive in and really start to make content for them. Okay. What content is your target audience engaging with? Okay. So the same kind of thing when it comes to choosing your right platform that we talked about as well. Are they engaging with videos? Are they engaging with words? Are they engaging with photography? What is their main focus in terms of engagement? Okay. I love this sort of conversation, if you will. It's a really funny way of a company basically taking advantage of another company's mistake. Okay. Um, so we have McDonald's. I'm just going to skip over to the right-hand side here. Black Friday with asterisks, need copy and link. And then Wendy's, when the tweets are as broken as the ice machine. And a really great way to, now granted, a lot of these fast food chains have taken this like sort of Joker comedic, personality, especially on Twitter. And so you're seeing Wendy is really taking advantage of that post and having and showcasing that comedian side of themselves. Okay. And then you have McDonald's. Today we announced that by mid 2018, all quarter pounder burgers at the majority of our restaurants will be cooked with fresh beef. Majority, right? So Wendy says again, so you're still using frozen beef on most of your burgers in all your restaurants, asking for a friend. Okay. And that, being clear, being concise. And honestly, I think the biggest thing here is in these two Twitter posts, McDonald's isn't showcasing a personality, right? Whereas Wendy is really diving into their jokester personality. They're like, we're jokesters, we're funny, and we're going to come at you with how we feel about your lack of personality posts. Okay. So ultimately, that's something really to think about to engage your audience, which is actually something we're going to dive into. Okay. Social networks aren't about websites, they're about experiences. Okay. So this entire time I've been talking mostly about developing this experience that you're going to create for your viewer. And I haven't been talking as much about anything else in terms of what are the defined information about Instagram and TikTok, etc. I'm talking about more of the content that you're creating. All right. And that is because the content itself is the most important part of it. Okay. So again, social networks aren't just websites where plop in information. It's about experiences. Okay. And that's, by the way, from Mike De Lorenzo from the NHL Social Media Marketing. And again, as I mentioned before, they do a really great job connecting to their audience and showcasing their personality as kind of like the sports guy or sports friend that you might have around. Okay. All right, so I have an example of a Burger King ad. Now, Burger King has has been doing a pretty great job in terms of their personality on Twitter, especially. Their Instagram tends to be a bit of a hit and miss, where there's some really good stuff there, and then there's some stuff that just doesn't work as well. Okay, it's not that this is terrible. All right, it's just that it could be better. All right. So when we look at the visual, it's all about the chicken or the chicken, thing, and they're playing a little wordplay there. But you look at the content on the right hand side, it says all the other chicken sandwiches wish they were the chicken. It's just really bland. Make a meal out of it, get a free Whopper when you buy the chicken at BK app. It's not engaging because it's so dry. There isn't personality into it. I can see that they were trying to add a personality to it, but just wasn't shining through. Okay. Again, they have moments. Again, it goes back and forth, and we're actually going to see that after we talk about creating engaging content. Okay. Number one, more storytelling, less static. Okay. This static. Okay. It's just a static 2D image with static, frankly, 2D information on it. Nothing interesting. There's no personality about it. Okay. Be consistent. That's another thing where Burger King, I think, does a better job with their image, if you will, on Twitter versus Instagram, because the consistency factor on Instagram could be improved, in my opinion. Okay. And that's what I'm ultimately showing you here very shortly. And then lastly, quality content. Okay. Quality content shot on, it could be hashtag shot on an iPhone for all I care. But as long as it's visual, it has a good visual quality. Okay. Less could be said for certain parts of social media platforms, specifically stories. And then sometimes TikTok, but not always. Mixed feels about quality for TikTok. I would say better quality tends to do better on TikTok, but you could do either or. However, for stories, overall, it tends to be a better decision to do something that looks like it was at home created, not super high quality. Okay, so there are certain places where the less the quality is, the better it is. Just depends. Okay. Storytelling versus static. Basic sales tactics are boring and not empathetic. Okay. Make your stories personable. Make your stories captivating. make your stories reach your audience emotionally. Okay. Empathetic and emotional, you know, those go hand in hand. Okay. You want to get to your audience on an emotional level. You want to understand who they are, not as like what they do day to day, whatever, but like literally how they're feeling. Okay. Once you understand how they're feeling, you can create content that is substantially more personable. Okay. A lot of times when you're creating stories, talking about sometimes a specific individual, there was a trend on social media. It was before the pandemic, but it might have been well before the pandemic. But anyway, there was a time on social media where a lot of companies were um, basically interviewing some of their employees or people that worked at their company. Some people did it really well. Some businesses didn't do it as well. Ultimately, where it was well was, or where it was done well, is when we got to see the emotional side of that worker and like really how they felt, and it wasn't, a scripted scenario for that particular company. It's more of like honest day to day, like, hey, this is how I'm feeling, this is how I go about my work, and this is why I'm here. You know what I mean? And those were really successful. Okay. And because they were grabbing people in an emotional way, that story became captivating because of that. Okay. A really great way to think about things that are captivating. A lot of us see the commercials that air during the Super Bowl. That type of advertising is a really great way to kind of get a gist of what I mean when it comes to storytelling. Okay. So those type of commercials as well. Okay. Be consistent. Okay. How frequently should you post on a platform? When is your audience present on a platform? Respond to comments quickly. Okay. How frequently should you post on a platform? Depends on the platform. Okay. So YouTube is once a week. TikTok daily is ideal. Instagram varies. It could be anywhere between 1 to 3 posts a day. And then posting multiple times in the story. So just listing those three, that's a lot of content. Okay. Which is why that cross-platform thing that we were talking about earlier is so important, because if you are to post frequently, or as frequently as ideally you should on a platform, it's a lot. It's a lot of work to be consistent and post consistently. Have consistent quality, post consistently. Oh, it's a lot. It's a lot. Okay. A lot of people create post schedules and things like that can help them through that process. Okay. But ultimately, that frequency does depend on the platform that you're choosing. When is your audience present on that platform? A lot of these platforms will give you analytics in terms of when people are looking at things, or how, when people are on social media. Okay. Which is great. All right. I love to look at my Instagram audience, and actually surprised me. For a really long time, I was posting, I would post basically before I would go to work. And so I would post at like 8:30, 9 a.m. Okay. And I was pretty consistent. I was consistent, day to day, and just wasn't really getting like the amount of views that I really expected on certain posts. And I was like, well, why? Well, later I looked at my insights and realized that my audience wasn't really engaging on that platform at that time. My audience was engaging later in the afternoon, around 3 p.m. actually, which I was really surprised about. I thought, well, maybe it'd be early in the morning, or like noon, or later in the evening, and I was totally wrong, right? So instead, I should have been posting at 3 p.m. instead of 9 a.m. Now, sometimes it's hard to make that decision depending on what works best for your schedule as well, but it is always really important to know when, again, your audience is present. Okay. Respond quickly to comments, okay? Those comments are direct engagement with the content that you're producing. So it's really important to be consistently engaging with them as quickly as they're commenting, okay? If you choose not to comment within a day's time, for example, they might lose interest in continuing the conversation. The longer a conversation is on a post, the more engagement overall that you're going to get. So you really want to be sure that you are responding quickly to them. Quality content, okay? Post engaging storytelling content. High quality graphics, video, and photography, and avoid posting static, low quality content. Engaging storytelling things, again, like I've been talking about, is developing a story. You know, beginning, middle, and end is a basic concept of a story that you could develop, rather than something that's static. So that example that I showed earlier of Burger King would be something that I would consider more static. Okay. Oh, that's a really great question, Bertha. So if you post at a time that your audience is not engaging, won't they eventually see your post? Yeah, absolutely. They'll eventually see your post, but it might not necessarily be the first thing that they see. So if you're posting when they're going or scrolling through social media, then they're definitely going to see it, versus they might see it later on. They might have literally hundreds of other things in front of it to look at. And I mean, you do also have an algorithm that you're trying to work with as well, which is another thing. Okay. So, like I said, it depends on your schedule and what works best for you, but it is ideal to try to post stuff when your audience is engaging with that platform the most. Okay. High quality graphics, video, and photography. Honestly, the vast majority of our smartphones and tablets have high quality cameras on them and can shoot high quality content. All right. But let me tell you, lights are your best friend. No joke. Okay. Because depending on the lighting of an environment can make or break the content that you're showing. So consider investing in some things that might help. Ring lights, of course, are like your go-to social media lighting source. I have a ring light on right now. Okay. This is ring light action. Okay. You know, also having backlights and things like that. These are types of things to think about because they can elevate the visuals a lot more. Okay. What else is there? Yeah, the lighting is such a big thing. You can get small little ring lights for cameras. And again, that just tends to elevate the quality a lot more. Even again, if you have a quality device, depending on the lighting, if you're shooting indoors, especially, the lighting doesn't tend to be as great. If you have a light source coming from outdoors, it tends to be better. Again, basically lighting 101 is what you really want to consider when it comes to high quality graphics, videos, and photography. Okay, that's a big one. Okay, avoid posting static, low quality content. Okay, so if you don't have a light source, you're shooting at night or you're shooting indoors, etc., that's going to be lower quality content. And then again, that static information that we saw before, where it's like, oh, this is $29.99, buy it today. Okay, those are things that you're ultimately going to want to try to avoid. Okay. And I'll get to that question later too, Andrea. We will have a time to answer questions at the end of the presentation too. So that's actually one that I'm probably going to wait to answer until then, because it's a really great one, but it's going to be a longer explanation. All right. Okay. This example. Oh, I love this example. And the biggest reason is because they humanized a burger. They humanized a burger, and this is actually a series of a couple of different images that they did, but they all had different hairstyles. So the toppings of the burger were all laid out in different hairstyles. This one was my personal favorite of the emo phase, and their content said, "Working on that summer lookbook," which goes with their sort of jokester, comedic type of personality that they already established on Twitter, and they just really nailed it out of the park with this one on Instagram. Okay. This post and the post that I showed you prior. Do I have the comparison? Yes. Okay. So I'm going to skip the quote for right now because it's totally relevant, but hold on. So the post that I showed you prior, the really static one, just like, hey, you can get a Whopper, that's pretty cool, whatever, versus the emo phase or the hairstyle ones, the summer lookbook ones. Look at the engagement difference. Now, this isn't necessarily a guarantee that it was engaged with this much, because they could have done paid advertising for one and not done paid advertising for the other. So there is that possibility. But in terms of engaging content, the adding that personality to their product was so much more engaging, so much more personable than, again, get a Whopper through our app. Okay. Very static. So ultimately, the comparison between the two here is you have your static on the left-hand side and you have your storytelling on the right-hand side with the beautiful summer lookbook, the emo phase. Okay. Now let's circle back real quick to that quote. If folks don't know who Maya Angelou is, she's an American poet and activist, an amazing human being. If you haven't heard about her before, definitely look her up. She's an incredible human. This is a wonderful quote as well. I mean, I would expect nothing less, but she goes on to say, people will forget what you said. People will forget what you did, but people will never forget how you made them feel. This is why we're talking about storytelling, because this is the honest to goodness truth. Okay. You want to get to your audience on an emotional level. Okay. And it's extremely important that you do so. Okay. Now, how do you gain that following and expand your reach, right? Once you've got that brand nailed down, you understand what your brand is, you understand the type of stories that you want to be sharing, you know the voice that you're going to be using. Now, how do you gain that following? Okay. First of all, quality over quantity. Okay. Especially when you're first starting out, you're going to really want to go for finding folks that are going to be ultimately your number one fans or your number one supporters. You want a solid group of number one supporters when you're first starting. Okay. Because they're going to hold you through the rest of this experience. Okay. That is why number one is quality over quantity, which again, we'll talk about further. So maybe I shouldn't talk about them as much right now. Number two, engage your audience. Okay. We've been talking about audience engagement as well. We'll dive into it a little bit more. And again, post frequently and consistently. There's a lot of consistencies here in terms of what you should and should not be doing. Am I right? All right. Quality over quantity. Quality content will make your brand more trustworthy, compelling, and empathetic towards your target audience. Okay. Again, finding that group of super fans first. Okay. And having them there for you all the time. That is going to be a really important thing, because when they like something, then that's going to tell the algorithm, okay, the super fans dig this. Let's send it to more people. If the more people like it, okay, let's send it to more people. And that's if there is an algorithm on the platform that you're choosing to use, such as, well, Instagram has an algorithm. TikTok has an algorithm. Twitter has top tweets, which is a little different, but top tweets has an algorithm. Really confusing. Anyway, yeah, you definitely want to be compelling and empathetic. Okay. Engage your audience. Respond with your audience in your voice. Avoid shallow, empty responses and ask questions. Okay. I've been giving some examples earlier, again, with Burger King. Burger King tends to really showcase their voice. Sometimes, again, on Instagram, it's sometimes a miss, right? And that's, again, avoiding the shallow meh responses. You want to bring out your personality in every response that you're doing. Okay. Also, feel free to ask questions. It's a really great way to engage your audience. Ask your audience, how are you doing today? How was your day? What did you do today? You know, or just questions to get them talking. Okay. That is one of the fastest ways that you can get the engagement going up. Okay. So I always think about asking those questions and seeing if you can get that conversation going. Once maybe someone responds, then somebody can point out something on that, and then it just kind of tree branches out from there. Okay. Post frequently. Okay. As I mentioned these earlier when I had the post frequently as well. So again, post at least weekly on YouTube or a blog, post at least daily on TikTok, Instagram, and Facebook, post at least 3 times a day on stories and Snapchat. Okay. Note that I said at least daily on TikTok, Instagram, and Facebook. It could be more. And you can watch your analytics to see, because it's different for everybody on how many times or how frequently you should post, depending on your content and depending on your audience. Okay. So for some folks, it might be better to actually post more on Instagram than just once a day. It just depends. Okay. But at least daily. Okay. At least 3 times on your stories or Snapchat. That's an extremely engaging platform. So you want to make sure extremely engaging because it's a personable part of these social media platforms. So you do want to make sure that you're posting frequently. It's kind of like almost like a diary, if you will. Okay, those stories in Snapchat. Oh boy. I don't think y'all are ready for this. I don't know if I'm ready for this. This is a video that ended up gaining its popularity in 2020. 2021. And it's really popular on YouTube. It was a commercial, I believe, also during the Super Bowl. But the reason that I am going to show it is because you will see how this advertisement directly relates to the idea of relating to the audience on an emotional level. Okay. Just to give you kind of like a taste of what I mean when I'm talking about really, really engage with your audience again on that emotional level. Okay. So this ad is by Google. Actually, I think you might not be able to hear it. So 1 second. Sorry about that. Let's turn that up. Okay. And let's go back to that. Sorry about that.
Mesdames et messieurs, bienvenue au McDonald's pour l'embarquement.
Okay. Let's skip to the next one. Okay. Very, very emotional advertisement from Google. Okay, there we have it. Again, what they did there in that particular commercial is really get to you on an emotional level. Okay, so if there is something that I really want you all to take away from what I talked about today, it is really starting to understand whatever your brand or whoever your brand is, the voice, and how you can use that voice to connect with your audience on an emotional level. Okay, because that is going to elevate what you are doing on social media platforms tenfold. And again, as I mentioned before, it's about what you're posting. Okay. Number one, it's about what you're posting. All right. So let's take a look in summary what we talked about today. Okay. In summary, we determined the right social media platform by showcasing your strengths, reaching your target audience, cross-posting to other platforms. We also talked about, developing a successful social media strategy by determining your brand's vision, determining your brand's mission, and researching trends and brand analytics. Number 3, we also talked about creating content that increases engagement and drives sales. So more storytelling, less static content. Again, that static content being, buy now, this is great. Being consistent and quality content. And number 4, last but not least, we talked about how to gain that following and how to expand your reach. Quality over quantity, really gaining and maintaining those super fans of your brand or your personality right off the bat. Engaging your audience consistently and frequently. And speaking of, posting frequently and consistency to allow for that continued engagement with your audience. Okay, so that's a lot of stuff to think about here. And I'm really hoping that you can all take this into your own social media environments as well. Okay, now there is so many other things that we could talk about social media. It's practically endless, which is why we actually offer some classes at Noble Desktop where you can actually learn more about both the social media marketing certificate and the social media marketing classes. So we offer social media marketing certificate as a whole, as well as the individual classes. Okay, so these you can go to on the website here, and this is the social media certificate that you can take a look at as well. All right, you have a lot of different social media content here. You also have your digital marketing certificate, Instagram marketing, Facebook marketing, LinkedIn marketing, social media marketing for YouTube and TikTok, and social media content marketing for blogs and Twitter. So not only are you able to take a look at some classes that would be overarching for everything, but we do also offer individual courses depending on what platform you plan on focusing in on the most. Okay, so I'm just going to copy this link in the chat and I will post it into the chat here. Okay. All right. And this is a great opportunity for you all to ask questions. I know that some of you had questions earlier, or if you have other questions that you would like to ask, this is a great opportunity. As you were all posting those questions, if you have more to ask, I'm going to answer the question that Andrea asked earlier, which is, I know you can analyze engagement time when you use MailChimp or similar, but what about Twitter, LinkedIn, Facebook, etc.? Is there a way to analyze? And the answer is absolutely. Okay. The big stepping stone in being able to analyze this engagement depends on what you want to see. But the big stepping stone is usually creating business accounts on these platforms. So creating a business account for LinkedIn, Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, etc. Those business accounts are going to show you those direct analytics that I was talking about earlier, where it will tell you where most of your audience is coming from, what gender they are, what times they're on the platform, etc. Okay, so I have business accounts on Instagram, so I'm able to see those insights and go work accordingly on how I'm posting. Another insight to whether or not your content is working successfully is also just going to simply be likes, shares, saves, retweets, etc., depending on what platform you're using. Okay, so you're going to really want to make sure that you're taking a look at how much people are actually engaging directly with posts. Okay, and you're going to notice some fluctuation because some posts are just simply going to be more successful than others, and that's completely okay. All right. But you're going to just want to make sure that you know that you are creating successful content for your audience. Okay. I hope that answers your question. But again, the big thing is ultimately business profiles show you more insights, but also your posts themselves show the insights by likes, shares, saves, retweets, etc. Okay. Any other questions for me today before we end this stream? Okay. I just want to thank you all for being here. It's been an absolute delight. Thank you all for your time and coming here and hopefully learning something new about how to use the social media platforms for your marketing. Okay. I was referring to more about when the best time is for your audience. Well, it does depend on who your audience is. So I can't say for certain what time that is, Andrea, which is ultimately why you would need that business account to see that. Ah, yes. Also, the difference between the @ and the hashtag. Thank you for doing that. I'm sorry that I almost ended. We're good. We're good. We're here. We're doing it. It's a little bit of a lag time, so bear with me. But when it comes to an @ is going to be signaling to another person, company, profile. Okay. So if you're using an @ on these platforms, that is adding another person, or rather tagging another person is usually what it's referred to on those profiles. Usually you want to use the @ in situations, let's say you had a group shot. Okay. You would @ all of the individuals in the group shot. It's like tagging them, but not directly on the photo. So you can tag people directly on content, at least on Facebook and Instagram, not on TikTok. And then you can also do so in the actual content of the post as well. So that's ultimately what it's doing. Whereas hashtags are basically ways of categorizing your content, okay, and putting your content into categories, okay. It's a way for people to, as I mentioned before, search your content. So you really want to be mindful of what hashtags you're using and make sure that it's relating to what you're posting. Okay. I know IG is trying to compete with TikTok. That's a fact. If your strength is photos, what would you force yourself into reels or stories? Okay. um, ah, I have mixed feels, but long story short, I would suggest doing both and see which one works best for you, because I think it again depends on the content that you're sharing. I know that you mentioned that your strength is photos. There are certain themes that happen with reels that are photocentric, where it'll have a beginning where it might be like a close up of somebody, like, here's all like the things I've done, huh? And then it zooms into 10, 12 different photos that you shot. So that's a way that the reels are frequently used for photography based content. um, I don't think photography based content works really well in stories, but again, using stories as more of like a diary tends to be more successful. So basically, behind the scenes footage in stories works really well. I heard their algorithm has switched to favor videos over photos in your feed. That is, yes. And the reason for that is, so the co-founder of Instagram mentioned something, and I might be quoting him wrong on this, but he said something on the lines of the platform Instagram is meant about, or its purpose is to create experiences. And people can create these experiences through video content better, which is why, yes, they tend to, yeah, correct, lean towards more video. But a word that you want to really think about and maybe dissect in the future is, the definition of what an experience is and how people can experience your photos, okay? Because I think photography still is going to be an integral part of that platform. At least I would assume so, because there's also so many other video platforms. The photography part is what sort of differentiates Instagram, at least right now. So, thinking about how to create that experience, I mentioned behind the scenes, right? A good example of that is with photography or static content on Instagram. Something that you could do is you could post multiple photos, and develop a story that way. So each part is basically like a still shot of a video. And that's a really great way of showcasing an experience without posting video. Um, Also, when using hashtags, it used to be that you wanted to post a lot to get views. Yup. But it is not kosher, not recommended, bad taste in the mouth for your audience. Yeah, yeah, absolutely. I like the way that you, you worded it there, but you're absolutely correct. That with your hashtags, you want to, there's a couple do's and don'ts ultimately about the hashtags that we didn't really dive into today. We do dive into it in a lot more detail, by the way, in our social media marketing courses that I linked for you. But to make the long story short, you want to make sure that you don't overdo it on the hashtags. You make sure that those hashtags are relevant to what you're posting. So don't overdo it on the hashtags. Make sure they're relevant. I would say ultimately don't really need more than 10. 10 is even questionably overdoing it. You'll see you'll see people post their hashtags as comments, which is, and then they'll have like a whole laundry list, which, whatever, but honestly, the hashtags that are really important are the popular hashtags in the area of focus that you're in. Those are the ones that are really going to get your traffic. Okay. Awesome questions. Thank you so much for these questions. I love to engage with all of you, and I really appreciate you all staying here until the very end. Thank you for being a part of this. Again, make sure to check out nobledesktop.com. Check out the courses that we have available. There's a lot of really cool stuff happening. The social media courses we have happening in the end of October, and you can join those courses either online or in person in New York City. Totally up to you on what would work well. But it's definitely worth checking out because we definitely deep dive into these things that you're all asking questions about, which is great. But again, I want to thank you so much. Yeah, awesome. Really great. Oh, I appreciate it. I'm really glad that you all enjoyed it. And, until next time, I'll see you all later. Thank you for coming and have a great evening. Bye.